Ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, welcome to SJMMA and welcome to my UFC 298 preview show. Now, usually on these kind of look aheads to cards, I like to go into a lot of detail and I like to look at every single fight and add as much overall depth as I can. But if you look at my video retention numbers, you lot don't really care about the prelims, which is a shame, really, because a lot of the best fights you'll find in this sport are on these pay-per-view prelims. But I don't make the rules, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to focus mainly on the main card, and then at the end, for all you prelim lovers, which I hope a lot of you are, because like I said, there are some bangers there sometimes, I'm going to go through them in a little bit less detail at the end. But let's start right at the very top with the featherweight title fight of Volkanovski and Topuria. Let me first say that I am a huge Volkanovski fan. I'm a big fan of the way that he fights. I think even though he's a little guy at 145 and very little at lightweight, at least in terms of height, he's very good on the outside. He's a sniper even though he's 5'6". I mean, yes, his leg span and his reach is quite good, but still, to be able to have the ability to overcome that massive height disadvantage he normally has and still be able to beat people up on the outside is impressive. But I actually think that may be one of the things that's potentially going to let him down against Ilia Topuria, because the way that I think about Ilia is, it's effectively like if you roll a football down a hill, if you get what I'm saying. When he starts to build that kind of forward momentum, he's very, very difficult to catch and stop. And I think Volkanovski naturally likes to sit off early and kind of read his opponents. That's only going to build Ilia's confidence. With that being said, the negative of being so front-footed like Ilia is you naturally put a lot of weight on your lead leg, and Volkanovski's got some of the best low kicks in the game right now. So there are routes, if you're Volkanovski, to find the win here, and I don't think Ilia's a huge favourite. I'm not going to put any money on this fight because it could go either way, but there are other reasons why I think Volkanovski is probably going to lose this title on Saturday night. Number one, there is this crazy stat. I think it's flyweight to welterweight. It may be flyweight to lightweight, but nobody age 35 or over has ever won a championship bout in that weight bracket. And I think the main reason for that is obviously speed. In those lower weight classes, the speed and the timing is way more important than, let's say, at heavyweight. And even though I think Volkanovski is still very, very quick, that's probably why that stat is there. And if it's one of those things that's just around in MMA, who knows? There may be some truth to it. So that's one reason. And also, after Volkanovski lost against Islam Makhachev last October, he made some very eye-opening comments about his own mental health and how it relates into his overall fight career and how he needs to stay active for his own mental health, which, I'm not going to lie, was very powerful and is a great kind of insight into a fighter, I suppose, but it shows vulnerability, which I know is hard to say. You should never feel vulnerable talking about mental health. I'm going to make that very clear, but when you have somebody with the confidence of Ilia Topuria, he will look at that as a weakness, and that's only going to make him more and more strong. I don't think it is a weakness personally. I think Volkanovski is one of the strongest mental games in the game right now. But yeah, I think Ilia will take that in a different way. And speaking of Ilia's confidence, I think it's fantastic that he has it. If he is going to take down one of the longest reigning champions in UFC history, he's going to need it. But is there a level where he's potentially overconfident? I don't know. I've been going back and forwards with that in my head for quite a while. I don't think it's possible for anybody to overlook Volkanovski when you have the resume that he does and the overall kind of legacy that he does even at this point in his career. I don't think he's overlooking Volkanovski, and if he is, he's fucking stupid. But that could potentially catch him out, you know. He could be overlooking Volk. Like I said, it'd be very difficult to do so, but who knows, maybe he is. But yeah, man, just to kind of summarise on all the things I've said, I am going to go with Ilia Topuria, mainly because I think Volkanovski will try and maybe figure him out and be a little bit cautious in the first 10 minutes, and I think the longer you do that, the more that Ilia is going to grow, and the more that he is going to feel his range and feel his rhythm. But, like I said, there are routes into victory with Volkanovski, but I don't think wrestling is one of them, because Ilia, even though we see him as a boxer now, is a grappler first and foremost. He's probably the best grappler that Volkanovski is for, overall grappler, in his title reign. So there's that to think about as well. Whichever way you spin it, I think Ilia's the favourite here, in my opinion. Next up, the co-main event. Robert Whittaker, shout out Soldier of God, against Paulo Costa. Now, I'm going to pick Robert Whittaker. I think a lot of people are picking Robert Whittaker, and I'm not going to be any different. I think, in terms of the main card, it's one of the more confident picks I have. But there are still uncertainties involved after Whittaker's last fight. Paulo Costa and Dricus du Plessis have got similarities in their style to an extent. One is size. They're similar size. There's an argument that Costa's bigger than Dricus. And what Dricus did so well was he was able to impose that on Whittaker, which not anybody else has ever really done. He's always been so sleek on the outside, Whittaker. But one area where they're different is even though he looks a bit goofy when he fights, du Plessis is a lot more cerebral than people give him credit for. I see Costa as much more of a pure battering ram. Which, how can I say this nicely? Whittaker's basically made a living out of making the Paulo Costas of the world look like punching bags. Basically, until Dricus. I will say that now. And you have to think, is Whittaker in decline? We don't know. We really don't know. It's his first loss. Well, I thought he beat Adesanya, so in my opinion, it's his first loss since Adesanya won. But hey, that's an opinion. But yeah, maybe Whittaker's changed. We just don't know. That's what's fascinating about this sport. How can the top guys come back after a big loss? We'll find out with Whittaker. 185 is in a bit of a weird spot. I mean, you look at the top kind of 7 or 8, and it's almost like I could see a bit of a hot potato going around. I can look at a fighter and think, oh, you can beat him and then lose against him, or oh, that guy can beat that guy. However, I don't see him beating this guy. I can use these two as an example in here. I see Robert Whittaker having a very good chance of beating Khamzat Chimaev, but I see Paulo Costa having quite a low chance of beating Khamzat Chimaev. However, I think that Jared Cannonier would give Whittaker problems in a rematch, but I think Costa will be able to overpower Cannonier. It's just one of those divisions at the moment. I will say this about Paulo Costa. As much as he got completely embarrassed by Adesanya, outside of that, he's proved himself to be a tough cookie. A very, very tough cookie. And I know he's really annoying with the fact he always pulls out a fight, and I know a lot of people are going to call him a pussy for continually not fighting, but it looks like he's going to fight this weekend. But don't hold me to that. It's Paulo Costa, who knows? But he can take a whack, and he's going to have to take whacks if he's going to get close to Whittaker. There's no two ways about that. The other thing that's different in between what Dricus did and what Costa can do is, I don't think Costa is effective as an offensive grappler as du Plessis is. So that is going to be more difficult for Costa to impose himself in that way at least. But to summarise, man, I'm going to go with Robert Whittaker. I think, like I said earlier, he's always been so sleek. And I think maybe, not just Whittaker, but all of us underrated the actual cerebral ability of Dricus du Plessis. Like I said, he is a goofy cunt, but he does have the ability to kind of work things out. I think that Costa will go for him. I think he's got no other option. He can't fucking tippy-tap on the outside with Whittaker, because he'll lose that one every single day of the week. He'll go for him, and if Whittaker's overall psyche and ability has maybe dropped off after his last loss, he could find success. I don't think this will be completely one-sided. I think Costa may have moments. The difference in between the moments that I think that he'll have and the moments that Dricus had was, I think Dricus was great at prolonging those moments. I think Costa will have little split seconds here and there where he has Whittaker in a slight bit of danger, but I don't think it'll be enough. I'm not going to lie. Right then, you lot. Ian Macchiato Gary against Jeff Neal. This is fascinating. I really like this fight. I know a lot of people have been kind of poo-pooing this as an opponent for Ian, but I think this is great. I really do. I think Jeff Neal is severely underrated and very, very good. However, Ian is still probably going to beat him. I'm not going to lie. Nobody has looked better against Shavkat Rakhmonov than Jeff Neal, though, so far. I'm not going to lie. It's not even close, either. I thought he looked very, very, very competitive until he wasn't, basically. Until Shavkat extended his crazy finish streak that he's on now. But overall, for the entire fight, nobody has looked better against him than Jeff Neal. And that, for me, counts for a lot. One of the great things about Jeff Neal is his overall striking defence numbers are very, very good. He doesn't get hit anywhere near as much as a small, come-forward welterweight should do. He's a southpaw, which instantly makes him tricky. And I think his ability to kind of catch and parry shots, he's almost got kind of a Chris Curtis about him, but he's a bit more front-forward than Chris Curtis. He's less of a counter-striker and more of a banger. But I would say there are definitely similarities in the game of Curtis and Neal. And I think one of the things that Neal does incredibly well is, one, like I just said, he's able to defend himself. And two, he puts himself in the right areas of the cage. I mean, watch the Luque fight. He didn't allow Luque to get any kind of a foothold, really. And I thought Luque was going to beat him. I made a whole fucking video about it. But, yeah. I think Jeff Neal is severely underrated. And is definitely a huge, huge, huge step up for Ian Gary. And I think there are going to be openings for Jeff Neal against Ian Gary. I mean, if Song Kenan can drop him, Jeff Neal can put him out. Jeff Neal has the power and the defensive ability to keep himself safe and then attack Ian Gary. If Ian Gary zigs when he should have zagged, he could definitely get knocked out here. 100%. But he probably won't. Ian Gary, for all his faults and for all the fact that I think most of us would love to just sit him down and have a good old word with him about his lifestyle choices, all of that being considered, he is a fucking good mixed martial artist. He's incredibly rangy at 170. He uses it very, very well. His overall striking game from his kicks, his punches, his Muay Thai is all fantastic. Jeff Neal is not going to take him down, I don't think. As much as I've just spent the last 90 seconds explaining how I think Jeff Neal is amazing and underrated, which I think he is, Ian Garry, I think, is going to coast around him over 3 rounds and beat him by decision, because if you look at what, in my opinion, was Jeff's overall best performance in the UFC, it was against Luque, who was supposed to fight Ian Garry, weirdly enough. Luque is a come-forward mixed martial artist. I think Jeff Neal is going to struggle with the range of Ian Garry. Jeff Neal is fantastic in those, I suppose, phone box kind of situations where you are in a scrap, you're right on top of each other, breathing in the same air, all that kind of good shit. He's very good in those kind of scrappy situations. Ian Garry doesn't get himself in those situations when he doesn't have to. I hate to burst your bubble, fight fans, but I'm expecting a relatively boring fight, unfortunately. If it's not a boring fight, Ian Garry's fucked up. Ian Garry should make this boring. If he wants to win, and win decisively, he needs to make it boring. Which is horrible to say, because I think these two scrapping would be entertaining as hell. But, yeah, that's what Jeff Neal's going to want, and Ian is unfortunately smart. Well, in the cage. Let's leave that, alright? I'm not going to cut it out because I can't be arsed, but we'll move on. I'm not getting involved. I don't want to get sued, okay? Anyway, Ian Garry's going to win. 30-27 on the cards. If he doesn't, if it's in any way competitive, he's fucked up, basically. Right, lads, let's move on to Merab versus Triple C. Okay. It's a 3-round fight. I'm going to start with that. That gives Henry Cejudo an infinitely higher chance of winning this fight. However, I still don't think he will. I think Merab is going to have too much for him. And I'll explain to you why, because that's the whole point of the video. If I just said that, this wouldn't be a fucking video, so I'll explain why now. The first reason has to be his old mate Aljo. I mean, if you've spent 25 minutes in the cage with somebody and you're then going to share the mats with them every single day as they then prepare to fight the same guy, you're going to have all that information on tap whenever you need it. That is an obvious, clear, massive advantage. Activity is another thing. I know that Merab hasn't fought since Yan, which at this point was nearly a year ago. But Henry Cejudo's only fought once in the last, 4 years? 3.5 years maybe? So overall activity over that time, Merab has had more. And Henry he's getting on a bit now, man. He ain't a young guy anymore. I mean, he won the gold medal, 14 years ago? I think it is. No, it's 16, isn't it? 2008. Yeah, 16 years ago. Fuck me. Jesus. Anyway, yeah. I think Merab is it's hard. It is a hard fight now. It's a 3-round. Over 5 rounds, I'm picking Merab all day long. But over 3, Henry's got an opportunity because I think as a wrestler, overall in terms of the technique and the overall ability to get somebody to the mat and hold him, Henry Cejudo is a far better wrestler than Merab Dvalishvili. Merab has probably got the lowest takedown accuracy of any fighter in UFC history. I mean, it was about 4% against Petr Yan, for God's sake, but he basically gets in your face and grinds you out without doing that much damage at all. It's not exciting to watch. I don't know many people who are hyped up to see a fucking Merab fight, I'm not going to lie to you, but it's effective. And I think even over 15 minutes it will still be effective. However, I've said it 3 times now, the shorter fight time brings Cejudo into play. It definitely does. I would be shocked if Merab was able to get Henry down and hold him there. I really would. Now, Yan is a fantastic defensive grappler. He always has been. But Henry Cejudo is a fucking gold medalist. So he's on a different level in all kind of wrestling facets. If he can get him down, I would be shocked. I know that Aljo was able to, but Aljo's got a lot more of an MMA wrestling style that kind of includes BJJ, which Henry's never been that good at. I think that Merab is going to be doing a lot more of the traditional stuff. I don't think he has the size and the ability to effectively do what Aljo did to Sterling. He's going to have to go straight through Henry's hips, basically, and I don't think he's got the ability to do that. That being said, I do think that he's going to do enough work to impress the judges and get the rounds. Again, I don't think it's going to be a particularly good fight. I think it'll be close, though. I could see Henry winning 1 round clearly and Merab nicking the other 2. That's what I'm going to go with, a 29-28 Merab decision. If there is a finish, I'd go with Cejudo. Honestly, I'd go with Cejudo if there's a finish, but I don't think there will be. I'm going to go with a 29-28 for the Nutty Georgian. And opening up the main card, in my opinion, the most intriguing, fascinating, and probably the best fight on the main card, but it's probably the one you lot know least about, Fluffy Hernandez and Roman Kopylov. Now, it was supposed to be at Kramaliskarov, which would have been equally nutty, but I'm happy with Roman, I'm not going to lie. You don't get much more striker versus grappler than this one. Now, Roman does have some grappling ability, but he is a TKO machine on the feet. That is what he's going to try and do. And old Fluffy is a fantastic grappler. I think he's got 11 wins and 7 of them are subs. Very, very good. He's also now ranked at 185, so an opportunity for Roman to be ranked, that would be fun. I'm not going to spend as much time going into detail on this one as I have the previous 4, but long story short, I'm going to go with Anthony Hernandez. I think Roman Kopylov would be a great addition to the rankings at 185. I mean, him and Chris Curtis, just off the top of my head, would be an absolute barn burner, but I think Hernandez will drag him down and eventually get a submission. He's a very good choker, is old Fluffy, so maybe an arm triangle while he's on top, something like that. But Roman's dangerous, man. Very, very dangerous. Right, lads, let's finish with some prelim watch. The featured prelim is Amanda Lemos against Mackenzie Dern. I'm going to take Lemos. She's much more of kind of a physical specimen than Dern, and Mackenzie Dern is a bit shit. I'm not going to lie, she's a bit shit. But, well, actually, she's not shit, but she's not as good as Amanda Lemos. So I think she's going to lose against Lemos by TKO. Probably third round, late TKO. Next up on the prelims, we've got some heavyweights. Who doesn't love a heavyweight fight? I'm going to go with Justin Tafa over Payzal because I think Payzal is a bit useless. I mean, you can't be flying knee by Derek Lewis in about 4.5 seconds and be a good fighter. I think Justin Tafa's going to chin him. I just do. Now I'm going to talk about a few other fighters on the prelims that you should be looking out for. I'm going to start with old Rinya Nakamura. Won the road to the UFC Bantamweight tournament. Fantastic wrestling pedigree. Undefeated. Got 5 KO TKOs in his 8 wins as well. So he's got a bit of pop in his hands. He should get a big win. Look out for him for the future as well. He's a decent prospect at 135. And also listen to your Uncle SJ and keep an eye out for old Val Woodburn, will you? I know he got thrown basically to the fucking wolves against the old Ginger Ninja in his last fight, but he's usually pretty good to watch and he's fighting a Welshman. So shout out Oban Elliott. Hopefully that's a good fight. That's another one you should keep an eye on. The rest of the prelims are a bit shit, so we're going to end it there, I think. Cheeky little recap for you. I expect Ilya to get the better of Volkanovski. I think Whittaker is going to probably lightly school Paulo Costa. I think that Jeff Neal is going to probably lose against Ian Gary, unfortunately. I think that Merab is going to weaponise his pace and beats the Hudo over 3 rounds. And I'm going to go with Fluffy Hernandez to get a submission against Roman Kopylov. So, if you agree, let me know. If you don't, let me know, but do it nicely, right? Don't piss me off. Anyway, enjoy the fights. I'm probably going to be wrong. So if you want to revisit on Monday and watch this again and roast me, feel free. But yeah, you lot take care and I'll see you very soon. Enjoy the fight night.